morning. I am so honored and so excited to be speaking to you all today about some things that I have been working on in my classroom. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison Filippone, and I have been an art teacher in this district for the last 13 years. And what I want to talk to you all about today is how I have used building a community in my classroom to decrease my failure rate and increase student engagement. And what I want to talk about first is, why community? What is it about community that makes my students more willing, more able to do the work that I need them to do on a regular basis? So studies have shown that communities are not just goals, who believe in similar educational outcomes. And for us as teachers, I think we can all agree, we want our students to learn, right? We want our students to not only learn, but we want them to want to learn. We want less behavioral disruptions, and we want them to believe that we have important information to share with them. So why? Why does community do this? Well, for the last 20 years, they've been studying how schools with strong communities, places where kids feel that they belong to that school, does things like decreases violence, decreases drug usage, and increases academic performance, and increases perseverance, which is, I think, something that we can all admit that a lot of our students lack, the ability to overcome obstacles, to pick themselves up again when they have fallen. But how do we do this? You know, we've heard a little bit today about how that kind of works. And I have to say, you know, what I'm going to say to you today is not the be-all, end-all of this. There's many more components to this, or many more things that we can do. But I wanted to offer you a few suggestions or solutions. So, in terms of us, how do we build this in our buildings, right? Because community is not just about our classroom, it's bigger than that. It's about our departments, it's about our buildings. So what can we do as teachers, or what are some things that we can do to help build this amongst ourselves? The first thing is we can be open-minded. And that's so tough, right? Today, when we have changes that occur yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, hourly, period by period, we have more and more and more change that happens. Implement this new curriculum. Go attend these PDs. Make this other change. Incorporate this technology. It's so easy to be overwhelmed by it all that we turn away. But instead, what we can do is we can wade through all of that information, and we can do what we ask our students to do, to put away their phones and to pay attention to what's going on and take one or two things that we can implement to help ourselves have a better time in our classrooms. Which brings me to the next thing that we can do, which is share. We can share best practice. When we know something is working for us, we can share it. We know that vertical teaming and scaffolding works. We know that when our 7th graders have the information that they need, that as 8th graders, they will be able to learn more. So I want to tell you a story about this. But first, I would like to ask the following people to stand. Now, I'm asking you to stand. I know that this is crazy. But listen, this is positive, right? I'm talking about positivity, I'm talking about things that we can do. And here's the deal. This may not represent every great teacher in the district or every great teacher in Sewanaka, but if you could please humor me, please don't be embarrassed, and if you see your name up here, if you are here, please stand. These people here that are standing right now, in my 13 years here, they have shared with me. They have collaborated with me. They have given me advice that has helped me to be the best teacher that I can be every day in my classroom. Please give them a round of applause. Okay, you can sit now. I'm done embarrassing you. Okay, so, and again, there are many more great teachers at Sewanhaka. It's just possible we haven't had a chance to collaborate yet. And trust me when I say that, because I love my building and I love the teachers that I work with. But let's talk even more about why sharing best practice is so important. Here's a small story. I promise I won't take long. So about 6 weeks ago, I attended a PD run by my chairperson, Ryan Lindeman. It was amazing, thank you. And in that PD, he asked, are there any teachers here who use a website or an app that they find particularly useful in their classroom? And two of our science teachers, Pete Burgess and Chris Kassoff, introduced quizzes. They created a 3-minute quiz, we took the quiz, and then they explained how much their students like this website and like this form of quizzing. And I was like, I think that's kind of cool. I think I'd like to use that. So about a week later, I had to be out because one of my kids was sick. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to give them a quiz. I'm going to make a quiz on quizzes. It's an easy website to use. I'm going to make a quiz and I'm going to give that to my students. So I did, and when I came in the next day, I said to my class, hey guys, what'd you think of that quiz I left you? And here's what I got. It was awesome. And I went, wait, did you just tell me that the quiz was awesome? I don't know if I've ever had that before. I mean, I know I've been here a while, but I can't recollect a time that my kids told me a quiz was awesome. So then I said to them, well, let me ask you this. If you thought that this quiz was so awesome, would you prefer that to some of the other things that I've left you when I'm out? And they said, yeah. 80% of my students over 4 classes, guys, said they'd rather take a quiz. Now, I don't know what that says about the other sub-work I was leaving, but I will say this much. How awesome. So I took it one step further, and I gave them a test using quizzes. Now, I know it's very unconventional. We can talk about that later. But I gave them a test using quizzes. And I came in the next day and I said, listen, I know some of you guys were worried that you didn't do as well in the test, so I'm going to tell you what. Today, you can earn a certain amount of points back on your test, but you have to do this. You have to take this quiz until you get 100. That's how you get those points. Every single student took that quiz at least 3 to 5 more times, and 90% of my students earned the points. And at one point, one of my students said to me, Miss Philpone, I think I know all this information by heart. And I went, awesome. Isn't that great? And so a simple 3-minute introduction to something has now increased learning in my classroom. That's why we have to wade through some of the things and pick and choose. It's not possible to do it all, guys. Never is. But if we pick little things and implement them, they can have very big changes. The last thing we need to do is we need to empower each other. There are so many awesome things that happen in our buildings. So much so that our chair people, our APs, and our principals cannot possibly be out there and know it all. What better way to acknowledge the colleagues that we work with that we think are amazing other than tell them? An email, a text message, bumping into them in the hall and going, hey, my kids were talking about the lesson you did the other day, and they said that was phenomenal. Hey, you earned this? That's awesome. By empowering each other, we build a bigger community amongst ourselves. We understand that we are respected for the things that we do well. And we will want to do more of those things. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're constantly going to be telling someone else that they do something great and you're not going to get that back, because it comes back to you, oftentimes more so than you'd ever realize. But moving on to our classrooms, because I don't want to spend all day talking about the teacher aspect of it in terms of building. I want to get to our classrooms. I know we've heard a lot of this, growth mindset, positivity, big eye roll, what? It works. Our mindset as we approach something is so important. Think about it like this. How many of you didn't want to be here today? How many of you already had the thoughts of, oh my gosh, this day? And then on top of that, you didn't sleep last night for whatever reason. You got up this morning, your car wasn't working, you forgot your breakfast on the table, you ran into some traffic, you were running late, you're standing in the back. It's this, that, or the other. And by the time you walked into this auditorium, you weren't ready to hear the message that we have, right? Well, the same goes for our students too. Some of them walk in well-fed, they went to bed on time, they've got parents dropping stuff off to them, but many of our students aren't there. They walked to school in the rain without an umbrella. They didn't get breakfast and they're hungry. They were late, and when they got to the cafeteria, their free and reduced breakfast was done, which means they don't eat until lunch. And on top of it all, they got siblings ready. They dropped off siblings to other schools. And in the mix of it, they lost their pencil. Or, as one kid told me, he handed it to his younger brother because he knew that if his teacher yelled at him about not having it, he was okay with that, but he didn't want his brother to experience the same thing. When they walk into our classrooms, they are not always ready to hear our message. But when we create a community for them in our room that shows them that we care about them, that this is a good place to be, that we can see them, they will ditch that at the door, and they will walk in more ready to learn. Well, what do? How do we do this? We promote this growth mindset in our classrooms. We promote positivity. How? How do we do that? Well, this is just a little bit of research. But we leave them messages. We ask them questions. We put up quotes. It doesn't have to be big, guys. It can be very small. We do those things to show them that it matters. We do those things to talk to them about some life lessons. We do those things to tell them that they are capable. Growth mindset says, we don't tell kids that they're smart. We tell them that they're hardworking. Why? Because if they know that we prize how hard they work versus how smart they are, even your kids who don't believe that they're smart will work for you. Because they know that it's their hard work that matters most. Why? Why do we do this? Well, perseverance. Studies show when you have a better mindset, when you have a more positive mindset, you can overcome those obstacles easier. You bounce back. You don't carry it with you all day long. That means they don't carry it with them from class to class to class all day, which increases learning for all of us. They show that behavior is better, better character, better engagement, social, emotional learning is better. Less apathy, which is all the things that we say we want. What else do? We tell them stories. Appropriate stories, obviously. But we tell them stories about ourselves that show them that we are human. A very, very minor example of this is I had a kid who walked into my room and said to me, "Ugh." I said, "What's up?" And he said, "I just failed my driving test." I said, "Oh, don't worry about it, me too." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I failed my first driving test. I hit the curb when I parallel parked." And for those of you who are right now thinking, "Well, I didn't fail my driving test. Good for you." No, I'm just teasing. So, listen, I'm over it. But listen, I said, "Yeah, me too." I said, "It happens to a lot of people." I said, "You know what you gotta do? Make a list. What they tell you you failed for. Go practice those things, and then go take it again. Trust me, you're gonna blink, and before you know it, you're gonna be driving for 20 years and going, how have I been driving for 20 years? So listen, stories, little stories like that make a difference. That kid looked at me and smiled and goes, thanks, Ms. Falcone. And I was like, really, that's all it took? Okay, I got that. You know, that's the easy one, right? The last thing we can do is get involved. Now, I'm a go big or go home sort of gal. You guys know this who work with me. I don't ever do anything little. I don't know why. But it doesn't have to be big. If you want to do big things, talk to your chair people, talk to your APs, talk to your principals. They will support you. If you don't though, or you can't, I understand, there's no pressure. Join something big. You will not understand how important these things are until they start coming up to you and being like, I'm looking at my bracelet, look. Or I've got my t-shirt on, you know? And then they recognize you. They recognize who you are. If you can't even attend some of these things, I get that too. I have 2 young children. That's hard. I can promote it though, right? I can stand up in my classroom and say to my students, you all know we had a big girls basketball wing, right? So I can stand there and say to my students, if you see a member of the girls varsity basketball game today, you give them a high five and tell them how awesome that is. Or, I heard that such and such a teacher is going to be in the cafeteria today running something. If you have a chance during your lunch, go see them, go check it out. Nobody's going to be perfect, guys. Nobody's going to be able to attend these events all the time. But when you can, support the things that are happening in your schools. That's what makes them feel like they belong. Sorry, just some of the things. Here's the thing. I gave you all a card today when you walked in. Well, I didn't give it to you. Thank you to my colleague, Ed Rossler. I know you're out there somewhere, for handing all those out. So, I gave you a card very similarly to the things I give my students, and here's the message behind that. Positivity is just like that glitter on that card. You never know when it's going to show up. 2 weeks from now, you're going to have one of those on your nose. I hope a colleague is going to tell you that it's there. But you never know when positivity or your growth mindset will come back to you. What if, by changing the life of one, we could change the life of many? We do this, guys. We do this all the time. We have no idea how far our impact will go. It's so important. And by the way, I know I'm annoying. It's okay. I'm good. I've made peace with that. The last thing I just want to say is thank you. And by the way, I forgot my husband on this list, and he is my biggest champion, and he couldn't be here today because he has a major tax deadline. But I do have to just mention him because he's unbelievable and amazing. But to everybody else, oh, I did put him on there. Oh, that's so funny. Anyway, whatever. I'm glad I adjusted that like I thought I didn't. But to everybody who helped me with this, to my department who is endlessly supportive of all of my shenanigans, to my administrative staff who gave me this opportunity, thank you. I hope today you have the most positive day ever.